I'm Nora Hill.
And I'm Lydia Van Boeven. We have been students at the Colonial SKC Campus for as long as we can remember. And this was both of our first times on the Guatemala Mission Trip. We were so blessed to go.
Yeah, we've been on a few before in summer camps, and we were in children's choir here, but we've never been out of the country for 9 days on our own.
Yes.
Without our parents.
I feel like going into the trip, I kind of went in with an open mind. I didn't really know what to expect, but the Holy Spirit prompted me to go, and I had prayed about it and then invited Nora to come with me, and it was more than we could have ever hoped or imagined for.
Yeah, I had no expectations, but it was the most joy-filled week of my life. Like, if you think Disneyland is the happiest place on earth, you have not been to that school in Guatemala.
Yeah.
The kids were incredible.
Yes. I know one of our very first experiences was in crafts class. We were blessed to be in crafts class 4 days.
To lead them.
Just
her and I.
And teach them about the gospel as we were doing crafts. And I just remember one day we were teaching Jonah and the whale, and we asked if any of them had heard about the story, and their faces just lit up. They got so excited. Every hand went up, and they got so excited just to tell us what they already knew, and then they were so eager to learn more.
Yeah, it was us and our translator, so I felt like there was always kind of a little bit of a gap. We don't speak that much Spanish. Every time they asked, we'd be muy poquito, lo siento. But they were so, they understood totally. They grasped the crafts either way. At the public school, I feel like I noticed that language barrier was a positive thing for me, or like enhanced my experience, just because each day, parts of our group, there were 32 of us that went to Guatemala, would split off and go to the public school. So Lydia and I got split off, and all the women were teaching on Esther. And then at the end, Lydia and I and one other teen girl who was with us got to get up and share our testimony, or just a hardship and how Christ stuck with us through it, or things like that. And so I got up and I was able to share like I never have before and talk about my struggle with mental health from a young age. And so I'd be speaking and I'd say a sentence or half a sentence, and then Natalia, our wonderful translator, was next to me just repeating the same thing in Spanish. So I was able to stand there for a second, and sometimes when I'd say something kind of funny, I'd laugh to myself and nobody would get it for a few seconds later. But it was cool on the more emotional parts to say it and then watch their reactions as she said it, and really take a step back and see what's hitting hard with each student. And then one student stood up at the end and just shared a similar experience, and it was so interesting. It was just so cool to watch.
It's so cool to watch them like process what you say, and then hear it from the translator and just like watch it really sink in.
Yeah.
And you can just see their faces light up as they like relate to it and understand what you're saying.
Yeah, the public school really gripped me.
Same, for sure.
It was a great day. And then we got to pray in homes later that afternoon.
Something else was definitely a highlight of the trip. We got to go and kind of see where these kids live and like what their everyday life kind of looks like. And I remember at the last home we were at, we were kind of short on time, so we just went all in prayer at the end.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest thing. This family was a pastor, and they were very fluent in the church, and we all just started praying
at the same time
in both languages.
English prayer happening, and then Talia would try to keep up and translate, and then a Spanish prayer started happening, and then everyone just stood in a circle and spoke. And I just remember closing my eyes and thinking, like, remember this audio for the rest of your life. Like, don't forget these 2 minutes.
The Holy Spirit was so present.
It was crazy.
It was the coolest experience ever.
Yeah.
Something else that I really stuck with me that was so evident was that the Lord would just put us in the right place at just the right time.
Yeah.
I remember the last day we were evangelizing in the streets, and we came across this man who was clearly in distress, and we went up to him and told him that the Lord loved him, and he had never felt that type of love before, and we had the opportunity to pray over him, and it was just so special to see his face light up and really let that sink in.
Yeah, we were always in the wrong place at the right time. Like, we were always late to our classes, but I just happened to see the right people, and Roy is one of the leaders of the trip and an incredible spiritual leader, so he would catch us in that moment, and we'd just get in these prayer groups that could not be orchestrated any other way than God. It was crazy.
And we also saw that at the airport when we were leaving. We had a very long delay of flights, but the Lord used it for good, and we were able to bless so many people worshiping in the airport while we waited at Dallas-Fort Worth for hours on hours.
It was so cool.
The Lord is just so evident throughout everything, and it was the coolest experience. I'm so grateful we got to experience it.
From the beginning to the end.